Hello, I'm going to talk to you briefly about how to create functions using the Python programming language. There are several practice exercises that you have access to. They are attached to this particular assignment. So you want to download those and take a look at them. The first one that we're going to look at is our input-output assignment that we did when we started learning how to program. We used variable names or variable objects, and we used string literal objects. And what we would like to do is break this program up into smaller, more manageable pieces. The first one is called personal information. We're going to get that information, and then we wish to display this information. So that means we're going to have two functions. So let's take a look at this. We're going to give you this as a sample, but we're going to actually go through it step by step. Here is the first program that we introduced you to, and the purpose is to show the two basic objects that you will be exposed to when you are learning how to program, and that is variable names. There are a list of variable names, at least 8 of them. There are several string literals. Anything's enclosed in these double quotes are the string literals. We're going to create two different functions, and we may show several different ways to do this. First of all, we'll go back and change these comments a little bit later on, but we're going to create our first function. Function to get personal data, and this is like input-output statements. Next, I'm going to use the DEF. That's a predefined function. DEF, a word. It stands for defining a function. That's my function heading, starting off with the reserved word DEF, and I'm going to call this function get personal data. And what I want to capture are these 8 different variable names, and I'm going to place them in alphabetical order. Favorite actor, favorite color, favorite food, favorite hobby. Oops, and I can't use capital letters. Please do not use capital letters in your variable names or your function names. We are using the camel case rule. Favor movie or hobby, favor movie. I'll expand this out a little bit more. Favor song, favorite sport, and name. Please be sure to put a space between your commas and the next variable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I left something off. Oh, it's 8. Okay, I counted it wrong. All right, so once I define my function, I'm going to press the Enter key. Now, what happens when I do press the Enter key, the program automatically indents. It automatically does an indentation. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see this. So as soon as I press the enter key, it indents. All statements associated with this function must be indented. So I'm going to highlight, go to format, and choose the option indent region, and it will indent all of these statements associated with this function. I have an extra blank line. I'll just delete that. Now I'm going to use a value return in my function. I want to return values, so I'm going to use a reserved word return. These are the parameters or the information that I want to be shared throughout this program. So I'm going to return all of these variables. Now these could have been called anything because they are really placeholders, parameters. And the next step, I'm going to say end get personal data function. So this is my very first function. Now, my next function is going to be function to display the personal data results. And I'm going to call this output statements. I'll go ahead on and make this plural, not plural, but capitalized. Next, I'm going to type DEF. Every function in Python starts off with DEF, stands for defining a function. This one is going to be called display personal results. Open close parentheses. I don't have any parameters to return simply because whenever I print these results, they will automatically be associated inside of this function. So I do not have to include them in my list. I'm going to press the enter key, and I will take all the statements that are associated with this function, and I'm going to indent them. And let's take a look at them. You may not see all of them right now, but you will momentarily. At the very end of this function, I'm going to specify that we're at the end of the function. Display personal results function. So now I have defined both of my functions. The next step is I'm going to call the functions. The goal when it comes to creating functions are that we first define them and then we call these functions. Get personal data, display personal results. So the next part of my program will be to call the functions. I'll just call this a main program. In other words, these parameters are going to be returned and they're going to return the results, but they do have to be initialized. The easiest thing for me to do is I'll say favor actor, and I'm going to initialize it to a null string, and I'm going to do it for all the variables. Next, I'm going to call this function. The function name is called get personal data. So I would highlight this information, copy it, and reference it down below. Now, because we are passing the information as a value, or all the items as values, what I'm going to do is a little bit different, and I am going to call the data but assign these values, or these variables rather, to this function. So when you call this function, we are passing the information and returning them as a value. And for that reason, I will use these initialized variables to save the results. And I can do all of them at one time on one line. Favor factor, favor color, favor food, favor hobby, favor movie, favor songs, favor sports, comma name, equals to. Now, because this particular assignment statement is so large, what I'm doing is I am adding a backslash, which means continue on the next line. Get personal data information. Now I'm going to call the next function, call, and the next function I'm going to call is the display personal results. Function. And all I need to do is reference by changing this to font size 75 rather than 60. Run the program real quick. Let's close this out for a minute. Rerun it again. Mary Bradley. She loves sewing. Favorite sport is volleyball. Pink is her color. And she loves Supergirl. Favorite food, she loves fruit. Genre of music, I'll just say Lemonade by Beyonce. Oops, I spelled her name wrong. Actress Sandra Bullock. And so the results show. I'm just going to move the screen up so you can see that. And take one more look at the program. We do need to change this so this says A7 input output, using functions to organize the program into subtasks. And we can just put here functions are used to organize the program. Divide and conquer. And of course, I have written over my program, but I have a copy. Don't you do that. Make sure you save the program first with the right name. Feel free to review the program as often as necessary.